They had no sons, no family names, and no legacy of their own. But for over 2,000 years, eunuchs, men castrated for palace service, helped run the largest empire on earth. Some were servants, some were spies, and some became the most powerful men in China. Welcome to Interesting Tidbits. This is the story of how castrated men came to control dynasties, command armies, and shape Chinese history from the shadows. Our story starts with a paradox. Why would emperors give immense power to men who, by traditional Confucian values, were seen as unnatural, impure, even unfit to rule? The answer is control. Eunuchs had no heirs, no clans, no way to build dynasties of their own. They couldn't marry, couldn't pass down property, couldn't claim noble descent. To the emperor, that made them the perfect tool. A eunuch had only one loyalty, the throne. And it helped that they could be trusted around the imperial harem, the emperor's wives and concubines. No other man was allowed near. From the Han dynasty onward, eunuchs became permanent fixtures of court life. By the Tang dynasty, they ran entire branches of government. By the Ming, they had their own bureaucracies, armies, even secret police. But it all started with palace access. The imperial palace was a world within a world, and eunuchs were its gatekeepers. They controlled who could see the emperor, what documents reached his eyes, which petitions made it through. A clever eunuch didn't just serve, he filtered reality, and over time this role expanded. Eunuchs managed palace finances, supervised construction, ran ceremonies and festivals. Some were musicians, others were master chefs or librarians, but their true power came from their proximity to the emperor. A scholar might see the emperor once a month, a eunuch every day. Over decades, that kind of access created trust, and sometimes dependency. That's how personal servants became political titans. By the late Tang dynasty, eunuchs had formed their own administrative machine. They weren't just palace workers anymore. They were governors, finance ministers, and commanders. The Tang emperor gave them control of the Shent's army, an elite imperial guard. In the Ming dynasty, it went even further. There were 24 official eunuch departments. They managed everything from the mint to the silk workshops to the emperor's wardrobe. One eunuch oversaw the imperial stables. Another managed the imperial kitchens, yet another supervised palace punishments. But the most dangerous department was hidden, the Eastern Depot. A eunuch-run secret police. The Eastern Depot was founded under the Ming Emperor Yongle. Its job? To spy on everyone. Officials, generals, even members of the royal family. Eunuchs in the depot could arrest, interrogate, and torture suspects at will. At its height, it had over 12,000 agents. If you were a minister plotting reform, they knew. If you said something disrespectful at dinner, they knew. And behind it all was a eunuch with direct access to the emperor's ear. Power didn't just flow from the throne, it flowed through the men who lived beside it. Eunuchs weren't just administrators, some became generals. In the Tang and Song dynasties, eunuchs led armies against rebels and foreign invaders. The most famous, Zheng He. A castrated boy captured in war, he rose to become admiral of the largest naval expedition in Chinese history. 7 voyages, hundreds of ships, tens of thousands of men. He brought back ambassadors, giraffes, gold and tribute from across Asia and Africa. But not all eunuch generals were so noble. In 1449, a eunuch named Wang Zheng dragged the Ming emperor into a reckless campaign against the Mongols. The army was annihilated, the emperor was captured, Wang Zheng was killed. Even so, the emperors kept trusting eunuchs over generals, believing they'd be more loyal. Some eunuchs became more powerful than the emperor himself, like Wei Zhongxian. In the 1620s, he ruled the court under a weak Ming emperor. He executed critics, bribed allies, built temples to himself. People called him the 9,000-year lord, just one step below the emperor's 10,000. He was so feared that ministers begged to be reassigned far from the capital. Only after the emperor died was Wei overthrown. He committed suicide before he could be arrested. And then his corpse was exhumed and ritually mutilated. This wasn't just punishment, it was a warning. Eunuchs had crossed the line, again. Confucian officials hated eunuchs. In their worldview, eunuchs were abominations, men without lineage, without virtue, without a place in the natural order. Confucian scholars wrote the official histories. So guess how eunuchs were remembered? As villains, scheming, manipulative, effeminate, dangerous. Even when they did good, it was seen as suspicious. But behind the judgment was fear, because time and again, eunuchs won. They outmaneuvered ministers, controlled the throne, shaped dynasties. And that was a bitter pill for the bureaucracy. There's a pattern in Chinese history. A weak emperor rises, a eunuch gains power. He abuses it. The officials revolt. The eunuchs are massacred. A new emperor promises to never allow it again. A few decades pass, and it starts all over. The Eastern Han, the late Tang, the final decades of the Ming. Each dynasty saw this cycle, and each paid the price. Some historians say it wasn't the eunuchs themselves that caused chaos, but the emperors who let them rule. When the Qing dynasty rose in the 1600s, they remembered the lessons of the Ming. They limited eunuchs, restricted their numbers, kept them out of state affairs. By the 20th century, the eunuch system was dying. In 1924, the last eunuchs were expelled from the Forbidden City. The last known imperial eunuch, Sun Yao-ting, died in 1996. Over 2,000 years of eunuch history gone. But their impact still echoes today. They weren't kings, they weren't warriors, they weren't even men, as society defined them. But they were servants who outlived emperors, gatekeepers who shaped dynasties, ghosts of power that whispered from the shadows. This was the eunuch empire. Thanks for watching Interesting Tidbits. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay curious.